What if I was to tell you that you are actually living in a simulation and movies like The Matrix and The 13th Floor are really not that far off of the truth? Now, I'm not saying our reality is exactly like this in that kind of Hollywooded way that these movies are in, but the most cutting-edge data and science points to us actually being in a very fine-tuned, very complex, simulation-like reality. Now, the simulations that we would be used to and that we've become exposed to, like certain games or similar things, don't even compare to what we're talking about here, but it is of a like kind and similar. So why it's important to understand this and to really understand how our reality actually works is because once you know the rules to the actual game, then it allows you to play the game that much better. Because when you don't know the rules to the game, or you have been operating from a rule set that doesn't actually work and actually isn't true, it's like trying to drive on the road not knowing the real rules to the road. And if you don't know the rules to the road, you would end up getting stuck, you would never know when to go, you wouldn't know how to turn left or turn right, you'd be getting in traffic jams and crashes all of the time. So in this video, not only will I touch upon what these rules are, so you can play the game of life at a much, much higher level, but we are also going to go over how letting go will give you more control over the game, even giving you some powerful techniques you can start to use right away in order to incorporate this. Now, I've actually already made another video where I comprehensively dive into the simulation theory or hypothesis, which shows that it is the case that we live in a simulation-like reality. In that video, I go over some of the data and the science behind this, showing examples from actual scientists who show that this is the case. And so what I'm going to do is at the end of this video, link you to that one, because in this video itself, I want to focus more on the techniques and practices you can do to actually influence this reality so that it's operating in more of a way which benefits you. However, I will touch on some of the rules to the game or how this theory works so that you have at least a little bit of a background, and then after you've watched this video and you have the techniques in your tool belt, you can go watch the other video which gives you much more depth and information if you would like to. So many of those that are on the cutting edge of science, so basically the non-mainstream science, have data and research that now show that our reality is much more virtual than it is solid, and that materialism couldn't possibly be base reality. And that was what the kind of mainstream old viewpoint was, that life is essentially mainly physical, and anything outside of that just gets categorized as woo-woo and not that important. However, the simulation theory makes it so this couldn't possibly be the case. This theory also explains many of the ideas that materialism cannot explain, for example, like the Big Bang. Basically, our physical reality from this perspective is something that comes from what we can call the non-physical. And the non-physical is actually what makes up most of our reality, even though all of this appears solid and physical to us. The way to think of this is to think of our physical world as a subset of a much larger superset. You can also imagine this like a computer and a game. The game is the physical reality, it's the subset, with the computer being non-physical reality, or the superset. Now, the game itself cannot exist on its own. It cannot operate, it cannot function. It is the computer that allows for the game to be played. The so-called game comes from the computer. It is born out of it. Our physical reality is born out of the non-physical. Now, again, we can go even deeper with this. For example, when you break our reality down, and it's scientifically and data-driven, it is much less physical than we were taught growing up. In fact, I was surprised to learn that reality is more likely around 99.999999% empty space and energy, and only 0.000001% physical matter reality. It's from this data that you get sayings such as, if you were to remove all of the empty space and energy from every single person on Earth, you would only be left with enough physical stuff to fit within a sugar cube, which is really mind-blowing to me and really speaks to how non-physical our lives and realities actually are. We can even look at this from an atomic level, and remember, we consider atoms to be the building blocks of the physical. Yet when you look at an atom under the right scientific instruments, you will see that, like above, it is made up of about 99.999999% empty space and energy. So basically, the building blocks of us, physically, the things that are the building blocks of physical matter, is mainly empty space and energy. And the simulation theory, the simulation hypothesis lines up perfectly with this scientific data that we now have. Now again, if you want to learn more about the simulation hypothesis, this theory, the data behind it, what, some of the greatest minds that have existed in the last 100, 200 years have said about it, I will link that video at the end of this one. Diving deeper into that understanding paired with what you are going to gain in this video will advance you further down your path that you can possibly imagine. So once we get closer to learning the true nature of reality, why is it so important to do what we can consider letting go techniques? So there's a few reasons for this, but we're going to focus on two very crucial and impactful keys to why we want to do this. You see, as you live this physical life and you become convinced, if you have, that you are just physical and only existing in this physical world, you start to pick different things up along the journey. Things like traumas and emotional distress, dis-ease, and many other things. All of these challenges make it harder and harder to connect beyond just the physical game of life. It essentially keeps your attention and focus on the physical. And like I mentioned, the physical accounts for only about 0.000001% of reality. So if you're looking to shift your reality, your life, would focusing mainly on that tiny percentage be the way to go about it? No, it wouldn't. However, you can easily see this is what most people do, what they've been taught to focus on, and it's also one of the reasons why most people are struggling in their lives. But if you were to shift your focus to prioritizing that 99.9+%, then you start to be able to influence your reality in powerful, powerful ways. What letting go does is it allows you to release the traumas, the emotional distresses, the perturbations in the thought field, as Roger Callahan would say, that are making it more difficult to access that 99.9+%. You see, just like when I said the physical, the subset came from the non-physical, the superset, so did you. Meaning when you start clearing out the gunk, these things that you've picked up, you start reconnecting to the part of yourself that is beyond the physical, the part of yourself that is connected to the superset that makes up 99.9+% of all reality. Essentially, the part of you that has had a hand in creating this physical existence. One way to look at it is to understand that you are a three-part being. And if we were to look at it through this model, this will make things a little more clear. You see, you are physical. We're not denying the physical here. We're just creating a hierarchy on what creates more of a difference in your life. You obviously live a physical life. There is a thing called a physical. Even though it's that tiny percentage of all that is, it doesn't mean that it isn't important, right? It still seems big to us and we still operate physically in this world. So there's that part of you, and we all understand that. We all know that that part of us is there. It's our five senses and how we interact with the physical world. However, there are two other parts of you in this model that we usually don't think about or rarely visit. It is these two parts that make up the 99.9+% of yourself, or of that other part of yourself, the inner world of you, which is the mental and the spiritual side of you. Now, to keep this very simple, that mental part of you, that mental plane of existence, is simply made up of things like your thoughts, your visualizations, your imaging, and things of that nature. Very easy to keep in mind. The spiritual part of you can think of in a few ways. This is your connection to that superset, to the non-physical, to kind of what you really are, where you come from source to God, to the divine, however you want to put it. You can also consider this your emotional self, because this is the energetic part of you. Energy in motion, emotion. And so what you are connecting to, either consciously or unconsciously, on these two planes of existence especially, is going to make a huge difference in how you influence the game or the thing that is born out of the non-physical. So even if you're doing it unconsciously, like most people are, if you're connecting to certain things in this non-physical part of yourself, the mental and spiritual, it's going to create different effects that are happening in your physical. So if you then have a lot of blocks on the mental and spiritual planes of your existence, it's going to create a lot of gunk that makes it harder to access higher levels on these planes, which means it's going to affect you negatively in the physical. So just think of it, if you're very gunked up in the mental and spiritual planes, you're going to have kind of the equivalent of that gunked upness in your physical life. This is why people that are very negative, let's say inwardly, they think negatively, feel negatively, that's what they're in most of the time, they have a fairly negative experience in the simulation or in the game or in their life, in their physical life. And so letting go these techniques is what allows us to clear up that gunk so that you can now connect differently to the non-physical, you can do it more consciously, and even create unconscious habits that allow you to connect to it in a very powerful way that influences your physical or the game or the simulation or whatever you want to call it in ways that actually benefit you and serve you. So another great analogy is one that I call energetic anchors that will explain this pretty well as well. So just imagine that you're floating in water and you could breathe underwater, it's perfectly fine. So in this analogy, and towards the surface is kind of the higher levels of consciousness. These are the things that help you connect more powerfully to the non-physical, to more of what you truly are. And the lower you go down more towards the depths, the more you kind of attach yourself to the physical and think that's the only thing there is. The worse you feel, the more kind of helpless you feel, etc. Well, these emotional distresses, traumas, and everything else, imagine they are like energetic anchors. They're kind of rooted on the mental and spiritual plane, which has effects in the physical, but they're starting to weigh you down. They're starting to pull you further and further to the depths, and they're making it harder for you to connect to that non-physical aspect of yourself or higher levels of consciousness on these two planes of existence. Now, you could try and swim up to the surface and force your way into improving these areas, and that's one thing that can work to an extent, but then as soon as you get tired or you kind of take your eye off the ball, what happens is the anchors just take you right back to wherever you were and you'll stay there. And so one of the best things to do, rather than trying to swim up or force your way up, is why don't you just remove the anchors that are attached to your body that are dragging you down? This is what letting go, shadow work, and similar things do. They allow you to address the anchors that are causing you to be pulled down away from these non-physical things that are going to benefit you. So the techniques I give you in this video are essentially going to help you do that. Clear out the gunk on your spiritual and mental side of you, again, which is attributed to about 99.9+% of your influence over reality. The reason people who just focus on the physical aspects of life believe they can't change their life or all this is nonsense is because they're honed in on the 0.00001% of what can even influence reality. So they're not having much luck there at all. So of course they're going to believe that. But when you focus on that 99.9+%, you do things to really clear that up, become more intentional, dwell in different higher places when it comes to those planes of existence, everything begins to change. The simulation starts to shift. Now, this other way of letting go is not a dedicated practice in the sense you'll sit down for an hour and you'll do these things, or, like we're going to give you in just a moment, where you'll sit down, it's an exercise, and you'll be able to do these things to just snip off the anchors. This is something you want to get in the habit of doing kind of constantly throughout the day. And this is what we call lowering the importance. You see, so many people are attached to the outcomes in their life, the physical outcomes of their life mainly. The trouble with this is the more importance you put on something, the less likely you are to receive it. When you let go of the importance, when you reduce the importance, when you lower it, you prevent yourself from picking up more anchors. You also make it more likely for positive events, people, and opportunities to come into your life. Now, why is this? Well, the true reason, if we're looking at a law or principle to why this works, is what's called the law of balance. I can't get into that deeply in this video because it will go on too long, but I'll give you an example that can kind of show you how this can work in a real life situation. And that example is this. Have you ever been pursued by someone romantically or that just wanted to kind of have something from you, whether it was affection or attention, and they were very needy, kind of very pushy, kind of like just shoving themselves in front of your face in this kind of, validate me kind of way? What was usually your natural reaction to such advances? It was this. In one way or another, you want to get out of there, you're almost repelled by it because this person is putting so much importance on you giving them your attention or your love or whatever else it is. The kind of importance where it's like, if this person doesn't like me back or love me back, my life is ruined, right? They're putting so much importance and neediness on the outcome of your decision. It puts a lot of pressure on you, doesn't it? It works the same way in other areas as well. When you raise the importance when it comes to something, there's this repelling effect that happens. The law of balance starts to take effect, and if you're putting all this importance on it, the law of balance has to kind of take that away and bring back things to normal. And it will usually take things away by taking the thing you want away so that you can't get it. When you lower the importance, however, you're removing that neediness. You're basically saying, you know what, yeah, this is my preference and I would like this thing or things like this to happen, but it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen. You're caring, but not too much, enough to put your attention on it, but then you're going, something positively amazing is going to unfold for me anyway. It's all going to work out in the end. And that allows for balancing forces to come in and actually move you in that direction. And so as you're going through the day too, I would really recommend that you let go of importance and let go of needing certain outcomes to happen. Again, it doesn't mean you don't aim for them. It doesn't mean you don't prioritize them, but you remove this neediness or importance when it comes to it. I have experienced practically magic when I've done this for myself. I've helped clients do the same thing, and they've had similar experiences where they stopped putting importance on things, they let that go, and then all of these amazing things started coming into their life from seemingly nowhere. And it happens pretty much every single time. A great phrase to say to yourself to help you use this letting go technique often is this: when I lower the importance, a solution will present itself. By saying that and reminding yourself of that fact, you'll most likely lower the importance if you've been putting it on something and allow yourself to have the space for things to come in. So that is a continual practice you can do. However, let's move into now some of the techniques you can use that are going to help you snip away the energetic anchors, which is a crucial part in all of this. So the first one I want to give you is one known as the painkiller technique. And I'm going to play you a clip from a previous video I did which explains this really well. And you're going to get the whole technique. You're going to learn exactly how to do it, when to do it, what situations it's effective in, and so on. And just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, this is one that's great when you're triggered or something comes up out of nowhere in the moment and you want to very quickly kind of transmute or release that energy. So let's play the clip so you can learn exactly how to do this. Now, this tool we call the painkiller technique is a technique from our reality creation program called EMF, and this is where we take people through a 6-month transformation journey that causes them to come out the other side a powerful reality creator. Now, if you want to learn more about it so you can have guidance on this path, not need to keep using trial and error and get results as fast as possible, check out the first link in my description that shows you how it works, the results others have gotten, and so much more. Now, let's jump into this tool, like I said, and the reason we call this the painkiller is because this is a very fast-acting tool that you use in the moment. When used effectively, you can release an emotion that's triggering you in 60 seconds or less. Now, there may be some more deep-rooted patterns that if you keep getting triggered by, you will need to do deeper letting go techniques, which I'll give you some resources for at the very end or where you can go find them. But this is going to be great, again, to not keep getting derailed every moment of the day or multiple times during the day. So here's exactly what you do. First, we call it wake up. You are probably unconscious, so get present. Catch yourself sleeping awake. So whenever you feel the emotions and you feel like you're about to be unconscious about it, start thinking unconsciously about it, to start reacting to it, you just need to snap yourself awake, take a deep breath, and get into the moment. Wake yourself up and get into the moment. This is so you don't get owned by the emotion and it takes you on a journey you ultimately don't want to go on. So we need to take back control and wake up. The second thing you're going to do is what we call identify and locate. So where is the emotion and what is the emotion? You'll find that usually when you feel an emotion, it's somewhere in your body, like your gut or your head or your heart and so on. So identify what the emotion is and where it is. Literally put a spotlight on it and focus on it. Now, a great way to determine a core list of emotions is to look at what we call the Hawkings scale, which I'll pop up on screen. And the reason we want to do this is we want to be specific with what the emotion is, and we don't want to label it something that isn't technically an emotion. So make sure you are labeling it correctly and you know where in the body it is. Now, once you've done that, the third thing you're going to do is simply disidentify yourself from the emotion. And what this does is it empowers you to choose a response instead of being hooked. So you would say something like, if I'm doing it, and let's say it's anger. Let's say I'm going through some anger, I'm triggered by something and it's making me angry, or I'm responding with anger. You would say something like, I, David, am currently experiencing the emotion of anger. And what this does is it creates separation. You are not the emotion. It is just something that is occurring. It's something that is, but you are not anger or guilt or apathy or whatever the emotion is. You are simply experiencing this emotion. So separate yourself. You and the emotion are not one and the same. And fourth and final thing is observe and allow. Now, this is crucial. We are not going to try and fix it, and we are not going to try and force the emotion out. You allow it to be there. It is there for a reason, and what you resist will persist. And you will notice that the emotion will start to move allow it to do so, and also give yourself to fully feel in the moment without any kind of judgment. So if any tears, or if you have to yawn, or just any kind of feeling you have, just allow it. No resistance. What you resist persists. The interesting thing you'll find is that no emotion can survive in the human body for longer than 60 to 90 seconds if it's unresisted. And there are those who hold on to emotions for years, allowing themselves to be triggered by them constantly, when they only need about 60 seconds of doing this technique to start powerfully releasing these emotions. I mean, can you think of anyone who's just been angry for years, or sad for years, or all these different things? If they were just, when this emotion was to come up, use this technique, they would save themselves years of trouble and heartache and suffering, because they would start to release it and gain some control back over their lives. Now, what you may also notice after you do this is that the emotion actually turns to joy or neutrality. You will start to feel better. And this usually happens within about 90 seconds. And again, it's going to take some practice to get really good at this, but once you have done it a few times, this is something you will notice. So you're potentially 60 to 90 seconds away from feeling guilt, shame, anger, and turning it into joy. Now practice this technique, and I promise you, you will start releasing powerfully, really, really quickly. And imagine what it would be like if you could just keep using this and not be derailed by your emotions constantly throughout the day. It'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? Now this technique, again, is incredibly effective, and one we show our clients how to do because of its effectiveness and how much it works. Now I want to go over another one, which I will simply call the David Hawkings technique, because it comes from him. In fact, if you read his book, Letting Go, you can find this technique in that book. This is a phenomenal book and an amazing resource, by the way, if you want to go even deeper with letting go. It's one I like to read periodically because it's just such a useful book. And David Hawkings was an incredible soul, someone who did so much work helping people raise consciousness and raise global consciousness himself too. So I highly recommend getting that book. But I'm going to play you another clip where we go over this technique. Now it's going to be very similar to the technique you just learned, but it's going to be a longer period of time with a few little changes. So let me play the clip where I'm going over what this technique is, how to do it. And again, this is something you'll be able to do immediately after this video, because we're giving you the whole process. So I'll have this come up on screen, but with the David Hawkings technique, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to listen to whatever it is that is coming up. So you're going to choose something specific, usually. You're going to accept it, and then you're going to let it run its course. And there's a few steps that you can use in order to make this a little easier. So for me, I like to just lie down or sit down. I like to lie down usually, someplace comfortable, someplace you're not going to be disturbed, obviously, someplace without distractions so you can focus in on doing this. And so what you're going to do first after you've done that is just bring up whatever it is you want to let go of. Maybe this is a certain trauma, a certain thing in your past, something that even came up during the day. Maybe as you're going on this journey, you're starting to recognize more of your triggers and more of the things that are influencing you from that place that keep coming up. You know, one great thing to do is recognize, okay, what keeps persisting? What keeps coming up? What seems to keep triggering me? These are great things to do shadow work on, because they're coming up time and time again and influencing you probably in ways you don't want to be influenced. So bring up exactly what it is, the situation, the event, whatever it is you have this emotional charge towards. Now, immediately you want to listen to how you feel. You want to name it. So what is the pure energy here? What is the pure emotion? Don't have any story. And what that means is, you know, don't go like, oh, there's anger coming up and I'm angry because X, Y, and Z said this. No, that's a story, right? We want the pure energy or emotion. So let's say, you know, again, like it's towards someone, but we don't care about who it is or what the story is or anything like that. We just want to identify whatever the emotion is. So it could be anger. Anger is the pure emotion. Maybe it even goes further, and it's like fury. It's like just vitriol, but it's that anger energy. Maybe there's guilt that's coming up, and you're like, it's a guilty feeling. I feel guilt. So we're going directly for the emotion, which is energy in motion. We're going for the pure essence of what this thing is, not the conjecture, not the justification, not the story that we have since attached to it. We're going for the pure energy. The third thing you're going to do is then identify where in your body do you feel this? Where is this emotion playing out in your body? Again, these things are not, you know, again, like I said, it's a part of you. It's stuck in your body somewhere. So where do you feel it? Is it in your chest? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your head? Is it in your heart? Is it in your arms, your legs? You know, where is this energy in your body? So identify. where it is. Kind of breathe into it. Where is the energy showing up? You've identified where it is, what it is. So let's say it's anger, and then let's say you feel it right in the stomach. It's coming directly from your stomach. So then you've identified exactly where this energy is in your body. Now, fourth is to remain present with the energy or feeling, and the biggest thing is not to judge it. This is why we remove the story. We don't want a story here. We don't want all this judgment of what it means and what it means about this person or that person, about yourself. You're just working with the pure emotion. For the energetic anchor to be removed, we don't need to, come with this story, right? We're working with the emotion itself. So don't judge it. Don't say it means this or that. Just sit with it. Sit with it in the present moment and remain with it. And 5 is to sit with it for as long as you need. If it triggers a deeper emotion, so let's say you're thinking of one thing and then another energy pops up, and a deeper emotion. Like I said, certain energetic anchors come with other anchors attached. So maybe you think it's anger, but the deeper emotion is actually guilt. And the guilt is the big energetic anchor, and the anger is just like a kind of an anchor that's kind of attached to it. It's kind of like a branch on this big tree of guilt, that if you uprooted that, it would take the anger with it, right? So sit with it for as long as you need. Now, you simply just repeat this until you feel lighter, until you feel kind of more calm and relaxed, and it will be like a freeing feeling. This is something you will feel, because when you do this, again, when you listen to it, accept it, and let it run its own course, you will have the sensation of something actually leaving you. You will feel better because, again, you've identified where it is, what it is, and it will leave on its own accord. A lot of times these things won't leave because we resist them, right? We resist them, we badmouth them, we complain, we do all these different things that keep them in our body. And so if you follow this simple 6 steps essentially, you will notice that these things are being released. Now, these 2 techniques alone, the painkiller and the Hawkings technique we just went over, alongside lowering the importance, don't forget that one, that's an ongoing kind of thing you're going to try and do throughout your day if you want to take it on board. These 3 things, by themselves, these 3 techniques, if you keep using them consistently, start mastering them, they are going to allow for so much gunk to be cleared up on that mental and spiritual planes of your existence, which again are what connect you to that superset, what connect you to the thing that's influencing the simulation. Meaning the more you let go, I'm telling you, more things are going to start showing up in your life from seemingly nowhere that you want to show up in your life. Now again, I promised you a way to go deeper with all of this, which I'll link to you right here. I'll also put it in the first comment pinned down below if this is not showing up. But this is going to go over the simulation theory and hypothesis so you know it at a deep level, some more techniques to help you influence the simulation, and some more resources that are going to help you in this area.